You're wrong about K-pop. Did you know that? I didn't know that. You know now. And Baby Gang is here to tell you why you're wrong about K-pop. This is a 40-minute video, so I hope you guys got your food. I got me something. I got turkey sandwiches at 10 in the morning. This is why I'm fat. Bernardo, I made a how to make a BTS song type video. The pain and all of the scars, because you know you took it all. Oh shit. Leave a like if you like it. If you don't, leave a like if you like it. Because if you don't like it, like is in there so you like it. All right? Because I want to do it again. So go ahead, show me some love and tell me what you think. I want to see how wrong am I about K-pop. I'm just obviously just curious and all. Keep the bean with you.
Judging from like the many interviews I've done with like foreign press, I really do not like or appreciate that they try to pigeonhole like K-pop and like the Korean music industry as like this super like factory like corporate like machine. Where do you think that system came from? I mean, that's been around for a very, very long time, and it happens in everywhere else too. And also, what I don't like is that they only focus on like a few specific cases where that happens, and then make it seem like every single part of this scene here is like that. And no. Even with some of the companies that are being like described as super like factory like, I know a ton of artists that are super independent and super creative. Even if there are certain things that they have to do like choreography and stuff like that, they still have enough room to write songs and be creative. You know, there's a misconception that Korean industry is like somehow more corporate.
Hi, Baby Gang. It's time for a video essay. What we get wrong about K-pop, Part 1, Generalizations. Yay. We as English-speaking people in the West are often misinformed by our corporate media overlords about occurrences that take place outside of our realm. Hell, we're even misinformed about things that happen right in front of us. K-pop is one such phenomenon which encapsulates...
My bad. First things first, never believe what you see on the news. The news is made to scare you and to like, I'm not gonna say like brainwash you, but the news is don't listen to the news. Don't believe anything you see on the news because they just put anything out there. And it's to not only does the news put out anything, they put out anything to massage their own agendas. So don't believe, I'm not gonna say don't believe anything. I would be like, don't believe like most of the things you see on the news because nah. I just don't do it. I wouldn't do it. You know what I'm saying? If you already do, then I'm sorry, but I wouldn't do it if I was you.
That one of the fastest growing musical movements in the world, with so many complexities inherent to it, which is often boiled down by outsiders to the same ideas: facetiousness, cheesiness, exploitation, and fetishization. I constantly find myself surprised by K-pop's history, its fandoms, and subcultures. Hopefully, my insertion of myself into this video essay space can not only offer new information, but new perspectives to interested audiences. With that said, I'd like to welcome you to a series of videos I'm starting called What We Get Wrong About K-pop. I've been teasing this on Twitter for some time. My ultimate goal is to try to understand what is wrong information that we get about K-pop, and more specifically, why do we get this wrong information, and why is that important? Today, to begin this series, I want to look at a video by a YouTuber named Cuck Philosophy. I'm not super familiar with Cuck Philosophy's videos, but from what I've seen and gathered, he makes well-researched essays with a leftist bent. A video like this, with its high engagement and approval from a trusted breadtube source, is seen as a subject of authority. So if there are issues issues here, one can see how there would be issues in the presentation of anti-K-pop ideas from those who take less time and effort to research and present these ideas. I think this video, which is called The Late Capitalism of K-pop, while definitely imperfect, is fairly strong. I think it makes sense that people on r/breadtube vastly enjoy this video and prop it up as being important. But there are key flaws within it that should be investigated, even if overall I may agree with his anti-capitalist focus. I'm pointing out what I perceive to be flaws in the video, not to shame or embarrass cuck philosophy, nor to suggest that K-pop is perfect. I'm picking it because it seems to be one of the most widespread videos on the subject from people online aiming to critique K-pop. It just seems that every time you publicly support K-pop
Okay. Looks like we got something else we need to watch.
online and get attention from locals, someone will aggressively link you to this video. This is all you need to know about K-pop. Watch this. As if they're showing it to you will blow your mind. As if it'll present information that will be unheard of to you because you just like happy, cute K-pop stuff and you've never thought about capitalism before. But I do like cute K-pop stuff and I have thought about capitalism before. And as one of many people who can say that of themselves, I think it's important to point out there are problems with this video. When I think about my issues with Cuck Philosophy's video, I can break them down into 3 essential parts. 1, a misunderstanding of the scope of South Korea's music scene, both at the mainstream and indie levels. 2, the reliance on anecdotal evidence to create an essentialized narrative about K-pop. And 3, a misunderstanding of South Korean music history. In other words, the video suffers from too much generalization. It's a Western outsider's perspective on South Korean pop music that connects dots quite hastily without really taking up the laborious task of examining the details and, more importantly, whether or not some of its claims can be countered. So let's talk about my first issue, a misunderstanding of South Korean popular music and how it relates to this. For one, Cuck Philosophy's video falls into the trap that many others unfamiliar with K-pop fall into when discussing K-pop, and that is to use the term K-pop as a broad term.
K-pop seems to be like, to understand K-pop, this history relates to K-pop, what we know as K-pop now, K-pop managerial companies, creation of K-pop stars, K-pop idols, K-pop music videos. K-pop ended up influencing, things would end up influencing K-pop. K-pop idols manufactured K-pop idols. K-pop appears to be, K-pop music videos are brighter. The suffering that underlies K-pop, what the managers of K-pop succeeded in doing.
In his video, Cuck Philosophy uses the term K-pop many times, but never really establishes what it actually means. That's partially because K-pop is hard to define, although if you watch this video, you wouldn't know that either. K-pop essentially means Korean pop music, but what we in the West typically understand as K-pop is what Koreans would classify as idol music. They're 2 different things. Much like the old square and rectangle, all idol music is K-pop, but not all K-pop is idol music. To get a sense of this debate in more detail, do read TK Park's piece, K-pop is not a genre. Not necessarily to agree with it, but just to get a better sense. I think understanding the big picture of what constitutes popular music in Korea is crucial to understanding K-pop, whether you want to trash it or advocate for it. This classification issue makes the video messy right away. At 3:09, he describes the process of star search programs in South Korea taking creative control over hopeful performers, and then claims that this is indicative of South Korea's pop industry to this day.
The broadcasting station would provide studio bands, choreographers, music arrangers and conductors, lyricists and songwriters, and dance groups, and then require the star to sing on stage with them. Because the TV channels had a monopoly on pop music, pop stars would have absolutely no control over the creative process. The songwriting, the choreography, the production would all be chosen for them. This is another aspect of South Korean pop music that we see up to this day.
Damn, what the fuck? That just takes away the whole creative aspect of being a musician. That's not being a musician. That's being a fucking puppet, nigga. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh shit, that's
what we know as K-pop now.
Okay, freeze it. Thanks, Denai. Here, Cuck Philosophy asserts that the lack of creative freedom is, quote, an aspect of South Korean pop music we see up until this day. Especially because he's not using the term idol music. This statement is untrue. South Korean pop music contains a multitude of creatively liberated artists. Whether you want to argue that the percentage may be smaller than it is in the West, it's still a notable amount. Let's establish first that creative control as we know it in the realm of music and performance is, as Kuk Philosophy denotes in his descriptions of TV stations controlling performances, all to do with writing and producing. At least that's in terms of music creation. Most artists in the West have something to do with the writing process of their music and the production process.
Hey, Billy.
Pop artists generally do not write their songs, however, other than a couple of flourishes here and there meant to allow them a bit of freedom as artists and also to get songwriting credits, which are important for royalties and awards. Sure, now and then you get your Tyler the Creators, and by now and then
Oh yeah. Tyler's dropping an album on the 25th of June, which is next week. Got me something to hold myself over until BTS drops some shit, for real. Nigga, I miss Tyler the Creator. If y'all don't listen to Tyler the Creator, you gotta listen to Tyler the Creator. Get past the very homophobic part and raunchy lyrics. Actually, no. Okay. Not me giving a Tyler the Creator lesson. If you are like a sensitive person and you get offended easily, don't listen to Tyler the Creator's first 3 albums, 3 or 4. I don't know. Up to Wolf, don't listen to it. Or don't listen to it in an attempt to think that he's still the same person. It's like a artist development type thing. You know what I'm saying? If you want to appreciate the artistry of Tyler the Creator, then listen to all of it. But if you want to listen to it just to listen to it, you will find yourself, you will get very angry if you're like one of those type people, you know, that get offended at shit. Just to let y'all know this. Just to let y'all know. Okay? Okay, cool.
I mean, once or twice a generation, who produce, write, sometimes mix and master their music, and even direct videos and overall aesthetic. But for every one Tyler, there's about 50 Harry Styleses and Travis Scotts, somewhere in that gray area of having creative control, but relying on other creatives to handle many aspects of the process, which is totally normal. And there are also plenty of Jennifer Lopez's and Cardi B's who mostly focus on the performance and personality aspects of their craft while leaving the creative vision to the discretion of their team. Note that there's nothing really wrong with this either. The problem is not whether or not someone chooses to focus less on the creative aspects of their music, but rather whether or not they have the choice to. Many artists who come up through the pop music system have historically not had the choice to. Whether you're talking about old school Motown or you're talking about your early 2010s Austin Mahones and Madison Beers of the world, the prototypical pop artist has their creative direction controlled to a great degree. Look at every pop star's beginnings and see for yourself. Or check out Max Martin's discography so you can realize just how much one Swedish dude has controlled your musical memories for decades. I mean it. I Kissed a Girl, written by Max Martin. I Want It That Way, written and produced by Max Martin. Baby One More Time, It's Gonna Be Me, Can't Stop the Feeling, Max. Kuk Philosophy is essentially suggesting that the vast majority of South Korean popular music is in this realm, but worse, artists have no creative input on their songs. So let's examine Gaon's flawed but important chart of the most popular songs in South Korea in 2016, the year before Kuk Philosophy's video was released. It ranks Twice's Cheer Up number 1, an idol song that the members of Twice themselves did not produce or write themselves to any degree. Fair enough. Number 2, however, is a ballad called No Matter Where by the band MC The Max, written by the band's lead singer, Isu, according to the credits. Number 5 is another ballad called I Don't Love You by singer-songwriter trio Urban Zacapa. In fact, most of the songs in the top 50 are ballads? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm about to blow this case wide open. What we understand to be idol music, or K-pop, is actually not even the most popular in South Korea. You know what's probably more popular in South Korea? Ballads. Oh man, they love ballads in South Korea. Danai, please roll the clip of the ballads from South Korea. every
Sounds
year,
good, though.
ballads, many of which source their popularity to K-dramas, chart super high. While idol music is popular among young audiences, the rest of South Korea's general public above a certain age doesn't really listen to it. Ballads are very much South Korean popular music. In fact, one could argue that the most popular genre of music in South Korea is the ballad, which resonates with the Korean cultural touchstone we know as Han. Denai, please put a clip of a Korean person talking about Han so that my awkward non-Korean self doesn't have to do it again. Thank you.
In general, Han is this great sense of unresolved injustice and conflict and sense of oppression. Through Korea's long history of constantly being taken over and colonized by invading foreign countries, Han and displaying and expressing Han, it's not about trying to throw a pity party, it's about really just self-expression.
Year after year, many of these popular ballads are written in part by the performers. So the assertion that South Korean popular music across the board exemplifies the lack of creative freedom on the part of its performers is already disproven by this. Let's go back to the charts. Number 7 is a kind of rap R&B pop track by Zico, a rapper who writes his songs called I Am You, You Are Me. Korean hip-hop and R&B had a great year in 2016. On Gaon, after Zico came in at 7, Crush's song Don't Forget featuring Taeyeon came in at 14, Dean and Gecko's song D Half Moon came in at 19, and BY and J Park's song Day Day came in at 25th. All variants of the hip-hop and R&B genres. I swear. I know you don't know these people, but I swear they're hip-hop and R&B artists. Let's get back to Dean, who was at 19. Genres like K-R&B and K-rap often feature more auteur-like artists who write their own music. See Dean's Instagram, one of the most popular songs of 2017, the year in which Kuk Philosophy's video was made. Dean is an R&B artist who writes and composes his own music, and Instagram is no exception. Dean has been known, also, for his reclusiveness, with fans waiting for his album to drop for years now. Where are you at, Dean? It's funny,
Where you
people
at?
paint the Korean public and popular Korean artists as being corporate controlled and culturally conservative, so technical and artificial, and then you watch this video for Instagram and it's so dark and weird and uncomfortable.
I feel like those artists who like drop albums and disappear are like special cases. Like those people, I can respect people who just drop albums and just drop music and just disappear because it makes you want more. You know what I'm saying? Like I always wanted to do that. Like I always wanted to drop a video and disappear, but I think I can't do that right now because you know what I'm saying? It's not the place for that, you know? I'm literally playing catch up. So I can't really do that. So it is what it is. But I respect artists who do that. I really do. I like that.
And I hear you at home saying, well, this isn't K-pop, this is R&B. But as we established, Korean pop music just means popular music.
That's what
and
pop
this
music
song
is.
was a perfect all-kill on the Korean pop charts, meaning it was really popular. This is not even to speak of solo pop artists like IU, Chungha, and Yoonha, all well-regarded singer-songwriters who have at points achieved mainstream success. So far, I've talked pretty much about non-idol music. But what about idol music, which is basically what's being talked about in this video? Is there creative control in idol music? Well, even within idol music, from the groups to the solo acts, it's not totally uncommon to see idols also have a hand in the creative control. There's perhaps no example greater than the one that constantly stares us in the face whenever we discuss K-pop. The massive K-pop group that has long had a hand in the creative department for their own music, visuals, and even choreography. I'm talking, of course, about the group Sebastine. Yes, Sebastine is one of the most popular.
Bitch, I thought he was gonna say BTS. I thought he was gonna say BTS. God damn it.
Idol music acts, and their massive outfit, which contains 13 members, not 17, I know we're confused about it too, is something like an idol equivalent to Brockhampton. The group is separated into different departments, and each department creates different elements of their art. Their members write their own songs, produce their own songs, and create their own choreo. They not only are a creative force, but they are perhaps more of a creative force than any we see in the West, considering how many different elements go into creating an idol performance. Of course, you may have thought I was referring to a different group.
Yeah, nigga. Yeah, no shit.
The biggest pop group in the world by any measure, who have broken countless South Korean music records, etc., etc. If you're interested in hearing more about how BTS have distinguished themselves from the rest of K-pop to the point where they're essentially in their own category, do watch my BTS versus K-pop video. Among the chief reasons they have become the biggest ever K-pop act and the biggest pop group in the world is through their own creative artistic vision. Their rap line writes all of their own raps and also has a great hand in writing many other songs. Their vocal line also makes creative contributions, including Jungkook's invention of melodies and choruses. Additionally, BTS songs like Bepse, Dope, and Paradise are just a handful of countless examples within BTS's discography, wherein this K-pop group, this ostensible idol group, write their own songs about the unfair nature of Korean socioeconomic structures and pressures. This is the biggest of all the K-pop groups we're talking about here, and they were already huge when Kuk Philosophy's video came out. I must emphasize that this isn't really about whether or not K-pop is good. If you don't enjoy the cutesy funk pop of Dancing Queen by Girls' Generation, then that's totally rational. But then again, if you're looking for idols who have at least some degree of creative input in their art, you won't have a hard time finding them through a simple Google search, especially in 2020. BTS's success alone could be framed as the exception that proves the rule, that they're so successful because ostensibly every other idol artist gets no creative freedom. But as we've seen with Sebastine, this is not the case. Other prominent K-pop artists who have had significant creative contributions to their music include Psy, who's not an idol, Boa or BOA, I'm never sure how to pronounce that, SHINee's Minho and Chunghyun, who often wrote songs for other SM groups as well, 2NE1's CL, Big Bang's G-Dragon, EXO's Chanyeol, Chen and Lay, and especially Sateji and Boys. Which brings us back to that last clip. Danai, bring that back for me.
Pop stars would have absolutely no control over the creative process. The songwriting, the choreography, the production would all be chosen for them. This is another aspect of South Korean pop music that we see up to this day. What we know as K-pop now...
Okay, freeze it. Yeah, that's Sateji and Boys. Right after Kuk Philosophy states that K-pop artists generally lack creative control, he goes on to describe the beginnings of K-pop and casually begins discussing Sateji and Boys.
Really started in the early 90s, when with the advent of the internet, South Koreans became familiar with Western pop culture. This led to the formation of Seo Taiji and the Boys, who combined Korea's pop music with the Western influences of rap, rock, techno, and R&B, and started the craze that we know today. Additionally, the 90s were marked by a shift in the South Korean economy, from a focus on automobile.
He makes no mention of the fact that this very group, the first ever K-pop group by many estimations, had creative control over their own music. Sateji wrote everything. Different members composed, wrote and played instruments at times. They even did their own choreo. They also took many stances against Korean society, including their hit song Classroom Idea, which took aim at the regimented South Korean educational system. The first ever K-pop group had complete creative control and used it to rebel against South Korean society and politics, and they became very successful for it despite facing television bans. And yet in this video, Kuk Philosophy mentions them without explaining this context. It's important to mention that creatively autonomous artists exist in large numbers at this point. After all, it establishes the reality that K-pop idols are legitimate artists, not merely corporate entertainment slaves who lack agency, but artists all the same as the ones we celebrate in the West, despite the industry's cruel practices. The deeply ironic moment wherein Kuk Philosophy links K-pop origins to a complete lack of creative autonomy while showing and discussing Sateji and Boys, one of the most creatively autonomous Korean acts of all time, is not alone. Toward the end of the video, another such moment shows up.
Finally, the contradiction between the idol appearing as a godly, almost all-powerful cultural icon and the reality of the idol's complete lack of creative autonomy.
He's speaking about idols' quote, complete lack of creative autonomy, unquote, while showing clips of Taesung from Big Bang, a group whose lead performer and G-Dragon wrote most of their songs. Taesung even has writing credits on the track Wings and the other track Rainy Rainy. Then he shows a clip of Minho from SHINee, who has also written many SHINee tracks alongside bandmates Junghyun and Onu. The generalizations that Kuk Philosophy makes about creative input in idol music fall apart a little bit if you just identify the people in the video. They have names and stories, guys. Like, just look at the people in the video. Of course, Taesung from Big Bang isn't exactly Bruno Marsing it. He composed and wrote a few of their songs, which is not the same as having complete creative autonomy. But it's different from a complete lack of creative autonomy, or the idea that songs are written and chosen for the performers without their input at all. Moving on, let's talk about my second point, the reliance on anecdotal evidence to create an essentialized narrative about K-pop. Roll clip.
Summon therefore developed what is now referred to as the in-house system. No longer would SM only produce their artists, they would control every aspect of the artist's career.
I am very I like this. I'm very focused on this shit, man. I like this. I feel like I'm in school. Like if school was like this, I would definitely pay attention.
As seen in the company objectives, to plan, make, and circulate discs, to control music publishing, licensing, and advertising, to provide agents and managers, to organize events, and to operate a star-making academy. Everything was now housed under the roof of that shabby white building in Apgujeong. In the SM building, every position was staffed. Lyricists, songwriters and arrangers, recording engineers, managers, agents, choreographers, design coordinators, image consultants, dance, vocal and acting instructors, marketing executives, and of course, the CEO and founder himself, Lee Soo-man. The system ended up being a great success, and every major South Korean managerial company to this day follows it.
So for this section, I want to focus on how the usage of these anecdotes might give an impression of outrageous regimentation that can further mislead those looking to prove a narrative about K-pop. Let me first inject that the many components described in the SM in-house system here are not atypical for any major music company, particularly ones scouting, developing, and creatively directing artists. A quick look at some of the staff employed at Atlantic Records, for example, showcases art directors, marketing executives, A&Rs, video directors, engineers, publicity coordinators, etc. Throughout this video, when discussing both idols and trainees, Kuk philosophy often makes mention of isolated incidents and anecdotes like these that, for a person who doesn't closely follow pop culture and the music industry, might seem obscene. Seeing all those names of staff members may give a person the idea that an artist's career is totally manufactured and controlled by vast record label staffs, when in fact, when dealing with high-cost entertainment operations, many artists need A&Rs to connect them with other artists, lyricists to help them come up with songs, etc. So here are some other short but notable moments in the video where anecdotal evidence is used to paint a dark picture of the idol industry, yet could very easily be paralleled with normalized things in our own worlds, or among celebrities we don't stigmatize in the same way.
There are images of idols sleeping on the practice floor.
There are also images of college students sleeping all over campuses too. There's images of people sleeping in all kinds of workplaces. Here's a clip of me falling asleep as I work on this video. In the West, we often normalize this. We tend to see this as more indicative of a hard-working student dealing with normalized stresses, or grind mentality. Or we can separate it as an isolated incident representing only that person's life. Wow, that kid must be having a really hard time. But if I put 8 to 12 pictures of this in a row, I can use that anecdotal evidence to supplement any argument I wish to, as it will add to the pathos. I can argue that schools should be completely overhauled and banned even, as they are abusive of students and drive them to unhealthy levels of fatigue. And by the way, maybe I could argue that.
Yeah, do that.
Maybe I would argue that.
Please do that.
But we already have context for college life in the West, and we can have open discussions about how these things might be misleading depending on our own beliefs, or we can at least rationalize it. So who's to say these exhausted idols are not just like us?
Or of being half awake while waving at fans.
Again, super anecdotal. There are tons of images on the internet of paparazzi in the West catching Western celebrities looking sleepy out and about. You can especially say this of public figures who keep constant busy schedules. And given that these public figures are always having their picture taken, often against their will, naturally they're going to be caught looking really tired.
As well as countless videos of them fainting from exhaustion while on stage.
Again, anecdotal. This is a common occurrence for any star performer. Lady Gaga has passed out at numerous shows, including a 2010 show where she passed out 3 times after allegedly being jet-lagged. Throughout the 2010s, popular Western artists fainted a lot. Justin Bieber fainted in London. Marilyn Manson fainted on a Houston stage. But we sooner commend these performers for their tenacity and contextualize their health issues with perspectives on their individual stories than blame them on the industry.
The unrealistic body standards persist, idols often being shamed for their weight or being encouraged to undergo plastic surgery.
Again, think critically here as a viewer. This does occur in K-pop, and it's evident based on the body demographics we see in videos. But can we really say this is a K-pop issue? Most recently, Taylor Swift, who has spent much of the past few years speaking out about misogyny and exploitation in the music industry, revealed her struggles with an eating disorder, which she developed after a tabloid featured her on a cover with an unflattering top, captioned "Pregnant at 18." We have also witnessed the burst of
Oh shit. Oh shit. Damn, that's so foul. That's so foul, bro. Oh my god. Ugh.
popularity for pop fusion artist Lizzo see backlash from many on social media due to her bodily flaunting. This heightened after fitness trainer Jillian Michaels publicly chastised Lizzo for her weight, with the erroneous justification of it being a unilateral health issue, one of many ways in which fat shaming communities, very popular in Western internet spaces, justify being downright vile towards heavyset people.
I used to be fat. I still am. But I used to be like disgustingly fat. I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I ain't like being fat. But if people like living their lives, just let them live their lives, nigga. Shit. Let people do what they want to do. And if consequences come from their choices and their lifestyles and shit like that, that's up for them to, you know what I'm saying? So it's up for them to deal with it. Let people do what they want to do, bro. The fuck?
Did you know BMI is a scam? Now, this happens
I didn't know that.
everywhere is not really an argument against the idea that K-pop has these deeply troubling phenomena. I'm sure if you talk to Cuck Philosophy about these issues, he would contend that these are indicative that the same problems exist here in the West as they do in the East,
Yeah.
given that the impending doom of late capitalism is a worldwide crisis. Cool. But if videos like this are the evidence that many use to specifically contend that the K-pop industry is the worst of the worst, to disparage K-pop music and its fans indiscriminately as many do, we're gonna need more than this. We're gonna need more weight to the idea that doo-doo-doo-doo and fancy are any more highly manufactured
How you say
than
doo-doo-doo-doo like
Senorita
that?
or
Yummy.
And even after all this, idols are still often surprised and disappointed at the low wages they receive. Most of the money goes to managers, choreographers, producers, and wardrobe assistants, among others.
Again, the Western music industry has long done this same thing, pocketing huge chunks of money off of artists. The
Yeah.
360 deal is the textbook example of how Western record labels take money off of every aspect of an artist's creations.
They just fuck you. They just fuck you and don't even say nothing about it. They just be like, all right, what you about to do now? Like, yeah, it's so disrespectful.
Not until the past decade, wherein advocacy from newly successful, popular independent artists and free online content has shown artists how to leverage deals with labels and make money on their own, have we seen a real growth in artists making substantial money from music in the public eye, particularly independently. Speaking of independent music, let's look at another clip from this video that kind of plays with history in a way that doesn't sit right with me.
Secondly, while in Western capitalist countries, an increase in leisure time after World War II led to many musicians starting out independently, using their free time to start bands, write songs, and record music, where a record label deal would only come in later, the material conditions of South Korea did not allow for this. The necessity of intense studying and work leaves very little free time for common people to engage with music without the help of record labels and management companies. Because of this, South Korea's culture of pop music was entirely dominated by capital from the very beginning. People who dream of a career in music often have no chance but to sign up for such managerial companies.
So this isn't really true. Yes, Korean work culture maybe makes it harder for indie artists to get their start, but there has been a long history of independent music in South Korea. If anything, the independent music was quelled by cultural repression from the state. But just because there is an overwork culture in South Korea doesn't mean that indie music has barely existed. There have long been indie acts in South Korea. Indie acts are especially more popular and well compensated now, and in fact, K-pop as we know it would not exist without the numerous influential indie musicians of South Korea's past. Said musicians operated just as any glorified, influential artist operates, not with, as Cuck philosophy suggests, interests dominated by capital, but in fact with interests in confronting authority, challenging convention, and the undying intent of making the music they wanted to make. For one, the first rock band in South Korean history was independently formed in 1964 by Shin Chung-hyun, who is referred to as the Korean godfather of rock and probably the most important musician in South Korean history. Shin essentially was the first artist to steer the idea of popular music away from being mere entertainment in public spaces and into the sphere of free expression. He's a singer-songwriter and a musician who pioneered the use of albums in South Korea and mastered a Korean strain of psychedelic rock. In the early 70s, he was imprisoned and tortured after refusing to make a propaganda song for the dictatorial president Park Chung-hee. His music was banned from 1975 to 1987, and it wasn't until the 90s when his impact truly began to be appreciated at its full scope. In 1967, before his imprisonment and during his most popular years, Shin fathered a son, Shin Tae-chul. Tae-chul became an impactful musician in his own right. In 1986, he founded the influential Korean heavy metal band Shinawi. Shinawi was one of the first big rock bands of the 80s, alongside acts like Buhwal, Asiana, and Rock in Korea. The latter two bands were formed by a former member of Shinawi, Yim Chae-pum. Another one of Shinawi's many influential members was Sateji, the same guy who made Satejian Boys, the first ever K-pop group, as Cuck Philosophy points out in this video. Cuck Philosophy didn't note on his video where he asserts that South Korea lacked an indie scene that the first big K-pop group, perhaps the most influential K-pop group of all time.
Yo, man is poking holes in this nigga video like shit. This, okay. Shout out Baby Gang, yo.
Was a group that started independently by a former member of an indie heavy metal band. All of this is not to say that K-pop hasn't been to some degree dominated by commercial and governmental interests, especially since modern and liberated South Korean culture really only came to be in the 80s after Park's assassination and Korea's subsequent economic growth. Yes, the money and attention has historically been almost entirely concentrated on the ostensibly shallow, but it's not like American punk labels like Epitaph and SST were teeming with cash and attention either. The whole point of indie music is the innovation, the rebellion, the marginalization, the independence. And much like in America, we see now a huge surge of popularity in independent music in South Korea, from the surprising popularity of independent bands like Hugo to the recently independent works of legendary hip-hop group Epic High. There has always been an independent spirit in South Korea's world of music despite the lack of leisure time, and given the existence of rebellious acts like Satejian Boys, this independent spirit often works in resistance actively to that lack of leisure time, in resistance to that workaholic culture, as seen in songs like Classroom Idea. It's true that the same spirit is not quite as evident in idol music, especially if you, like Cuck Philosophy does in this video, only focus in on highly mechanized acts from labels like SM and YG. But in the biggest ever K-pop group, BTS, we see that spirit. There could be no greater evidence of this than in their performance of Am I Wrong, live on Mnet in 2016 during the heat of South Korean political turmoil. The lyrics of Am I Wrong, penned by members of the group, are politically charged, with rapper Suga making specific mention of an ugly, classist remark by a politician comparing South Korea's 99% to dogs and pigs. This came at a time when the president of South Korea, whose staff the politician belonged to, was under great criticism. Protests broke out amongst the Korean populace after her mishandling of numerous infrastructural issues, and especially her disastrous response to the Seoul ferry disaster that led to 304 deaths. Said president also was revealed to have blacklisted over 9,000 artists who were deemed unfriendly to her administration. BTS, the K-pop group, risked being blacklisted by the government for this. Of course, the president was eventually impeached for the most publicized crisis, an influence peddling scandal involving a top aide. In this moment, along with many others, BTS stood on the shoulders of Satejian Boys, who founded modern K-pop through independent expression, protest, and defiance of corporate pushback. BTS have even covered a song by ST&B on recommendation from Sateji himself for an anniversary project. The song they ended up recording, Come Back Home, is about teenage runaways struggling with mental health and social pressures. They say history repeats itself. Yeah. The South Korean president who was impeached
Park Geun-hye.
is the daughter of Park Chung-hee, the same president who imprisoned Shin Jong-hyun all those years ago, who was the father of the guy that started the influential indie metal band, of which Sateji was a member, who then founded the first ever K-pop group, which is a direct forefather to the biggest ever K-pop group, BTS, who followed Sateji's model of questioning society, including...
All right, hold on. Everything comes full circle, nigga. Working. Yo, that's crazy. That's crazy. This is real life a big ass circle, bro. Holy shit.
questioning Park Geun-hye's administration through their music.
Yeah, nigga. Yo, what?
When it comes down to it, the godfather of rock in South Korea was just as badass, if not more badass, than American rock legends, especially the well-off white ones. Shin Jong-hyun went to jail for years and was tortured to preserve the sanctity of his art. And if you think about it, BTS are more independent and expressive than most comparable pop stars we have in the West. They went on national television in a traditionally conservative country and performed a protest song in the heat of political uproar. These are both significant figures in modern South Korean music history. And for an outsider to gloss over them, to gloss over hip-hop groups like Epic High that are creatively autonomous and still became highly successful in mainstream and indie crowds during the 2000s, to gloss over the Deans, the 17s, the IUs, and the Boas, to gloss over the possibility that idol music is not even as popular in Korea as compared to ballad songs is to present a disfigured image of South Korean pop, past and present. There is no K-pop without indie labels and political resistance. There are no modern K-pop rappers without verbal jint. There is no BTS without Sateji, and there is no Sateji without Shin Jong-hyun. Because we see the decontextualized media about K-pop, the artists fainting on stage, the dancers sleeping on the floor, paired with the horror stories of uber-capitalist magnates attempting to shelve and commodify the independent Korean spirit within young hopefuls, we say, oh, this is all because of K-pop. K-pop bad. And we don't even really know what K-pop is. We don't think to compare these stories with the horror stories we know about in our own countries. The rampant sexual assault and suppression of marginalized people in the music industry, as evidenced by recent allegations of degradation against the Grammys. We know that Justin Bieber and Lady Gaga faint too, but we haven't activated those memories because we haven't activated the part of our brain that recognizes the Korean industry as being like ours. We know who Justin Bieber is. We remember all the stories. We don't generally know who Shin B is. We don't know who she dated and who discovered her. Our only context of her is K-pop, and our only context of K-pop is bad. Overall, the short answer to Cuck Philosophy's video is yes, K-pop is a capitalist hellscape. And so is every other major entertainment industry. Few will deny that assertion when I make it. They'll say, duh. Nobody's saying America isn't a hellscape. To that I raise this question. Are we really interested in Cuck Philosophy's video because we're looking to compare it to our own industries?
No.
Are we really interested in understanding K-pop's perils because we see ourselves in them? I contend that many of us don't. Many of us watch these videos to gasp and gawk, to say, they did what? Slave contracts? That sounds horrible. If we compare it ever to our own world, we say, oh, it's like here, but even worse.
Where do you think that system came from? I mean, that's been around for a very, very long time, and it happens in everywhere else too. They only focus on like a few specific cases where that happens, and then make it seem like every single part of this scene here is like that. We have like, I think possibly the most interesting independent scene anywhere in the world. Everything is very, very vibrant and alive.
And that's why generalizations are bad, even when they come from good people or good politics. They allow us to otherize and oversimplify, when it's the nuance that feeds our understanding of history far more than the simple narrative. Even if you disagree with my takeaways and think this video sucks, you have to admit, Because I showed you more detail about K-pop, you ended up learning a lot more about South Korean history and expression than you knew before.
Yeah.
And that Shin story is crazy, right? Overall, even though I think oversimplification can be a devil, my video needs a simple ending. So here it goes. Even though a lot of Cuck Philosophy's essay is good, a lot of it is heavily generalized. And that's dangerous. It's not dangerous in the sense of Cuck Philosophy being bad or leftists being bad. It's dangerous because the generalizations created can be used for bad things. Generalizations create hate. Generalizations create divisions amongst the working class. And people in power use generalizations to help us dehumanize each other, which is beneficial to them. The way that they often do that is through the media. So if we're going to understand how people in power, not Cuck Philosophy, but people in power use media to manipulate us, perhaps K-pop is a perfect indication. For us to understand why we have some misguided notions about K-pop, how we barely understand K-pop at all, we should look at the way that our media is teaching us about it. To be continued.
Damn, this was a good ass video. Yo, this was a good ass video, son. Holy shit. And I finished my sandwich. Damn. So, what did y'all learn about this video? If y'all learned anything. I mean, y'all told me to watch this, but if y'all learned anything, what did y'all learn about this video? I learned a lot. This was a this was a good ass video, bro. I really appreciate this video. I gotta look at more videos from this dude. This is crazy. That's wow. Well, to all my people who are as confused about K-pop as I am, and who are still learning about K-pop as me as well, have your visions of K-pop changed? Did this video help your stan? Did this video help you like K-pop more, or did it help you hate K-pop? Let me know in the comments down below. If y'all enjoyed, please leave a like down below. Subscribe if you're new and turn on my post notifications, and tell your friends about me. This is a really good video. And you know it was a good video if I did a whole damn outro. You know what I'm saying? Damn, I like this. Shit, I'm gonna hit a subscribe for this dude. Thank y'all for watching. Thank y'all for everything. I'll see you guys in the next one. Y'all be easy, alright? I bet. Bye.